Welcome into Cerberus Sports Talk episode 4. Come into the chat. I got an esteemed guest tonight from the Miami Dolphins fan base here, DouglieDoWrong. Man, this guy is doing it all big on the East Coast. Welcome into the pod, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing very good. I'm excited to chat Dolphin football.
Yeah, I mean, I am too, because there's a lot of simulators going on. There's a lot of transactions between our franchises.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a Niners fan. If you're on the Dolphins, if you're on the Douglie side, coming in and looking on my channel, I'm a Niners fan. So we're going to be talking that kind of relation going on. Man, I wish my backdrop looked like your backdrop. Man, you got like, you're epic. You look like you're going to war for the Dolphins, which is good.
It's funny too, because this light over here, so initially this light over here went out during the season. So when it went out, all of a sudden the Dolphins went on their 7-game winning streak. So I never put a new light up. So I had one black shelf and then the other one.
You just had the dark side.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm not touching that. And then a couple of days ago, this light went out. So like, this is all nice. It looks fancy, but it's a pain in the butt. And now this one was acting up and I had to change the colors because normally it looks nice. It's a pain to maintain though.
Yeah, first world problems, I guess, right? So,
right.
So let's for my fans talk about what you do and like what your channel is and all that kind of stuff.
So essentially, I cover the Miami Dolphins year round. I don't take a break unless I mentally need to take a break. Some days I'm like, I need to breathe. But year round. Free agency, I break down top 5 prospects in each position. So even if you're not a Dolphins fan, I do that for the draft. Each position, I break down the top 5, not just for the Dolphins, just my top 5 and what I like in each position. I cover OTAs, minicamp, training camp, preseason. I live stream the games. And then during the season, I live stream every single game. And I break down preview, post game, all that stuff. And then I do some funny skits here and there. I'm the poor man's Tom Grossi, I guess you can say.
Nice. So for your fans, I just started this Cerberus Sports, doing all sports. Like I like baseball, hockey, all that kind of stuff. That I also work with Hockey Royalty, which is Ella King's podcast. So I do a little bit of everything. I like to put my hand and feet and everything, just dip it into the pool and not really just experiencing all sports for what it brings, But yeah, I mainly football for the fans here, and I do it year round, so it's good. So let's throw this little banner up here because fans like that kind of stuff, and let's get it started. Because I think that for your fans, let's talk about the Dolphins season, right? Okay. So it was a little bit up and down.
A lot of
you had a great streak, just like the Niners had a great streak. Talk about the fan base and how they react to the season, maybe how you react to the season, and then just the season as a whole.
So it started off nice, right? Miami Dolphins going into New England, beating the Patriots.
Yeah. Like everybody wants to beat the Patriots. Great.
And in New England, you can't start a season any better than that.
No.
And then it went downhill real fast. Tua gets injured on the second series. Jesse Davis just completely lets the guy in, breaks his ribs. There's rumors that he could have went back in. He wanted to go back in, all that stuff. I'm not going to talk about the hearsay and that. Brissett comes in, goose eggs for 7 games, 5, 6, 7 games. And then, Tua comes back in and it's just like, if one side of the team was doing well, then the other side of the team fell apart a little bit. And it just seemed like for 7 weeks, we couldn't get cohesion. It was driving me nuts. That first Bills game, the defense stopped the Bills had their 2 touchdowns quick in the first quarter. Then the Dolphin defense stopped them for a quarter and a half. And the Dolphin offense was in position to potentially tie and take the lead a bunch of times, just couldn't. Same thing with the Raiders going to overtime. It just couldn't pull it off, even with the ref blindly not seeing the pass interference. Colts game couldn't get through that, and it's just one thing after another. And then all of a sudden, they just started putting it together. And it to me, the biggest game was that Thursday night game against the Ravens. Kind of showed that okay, maybe we're not the laughing stock of the NFL. And when we handedly beat the Ravens on prime time, I was like, all right, there it is. But then came down to the Tennessee Titan game. You need to win that to continue to be your play. Going in that Tennessee Titan game, the Dolphins were the 8 seed. They were in the playoffs. And a horrible game plan. Your game plan was to throw the ball 40 times in 15-mile-an-hour winds, snow and rain, whereas Tannehill, Mike Vrabel had him throw it 18 times. So it's like it was a horrible game plan, and then it knocked him out of the playoffs. So, like you said, up and down season, it was a lot of down and then a lot of up, and then at the very end, a little blip. And that was it. Season's over.
So do you think they were the most underrated 9-8 team in the league?
Kind of. You look at
Just
who
under the radar?
Yeah, you kind of look at who they beat in the 7-game winning streak, and you're kind of like you're a little suspect of it. But yeah, kind of. No one wanted to play them because that's the Dolphin MO is always we always play up to our competition and play down to our competition. So it's like those good teams come in, all of a sudden the Dolphins, it's a game, and you're like, this shouldn't be this way. Why is it this way? And that's how it goes.
Yeah, we're to get into the quarterback question in depth, but my brother here, Tanner, thank you for tuning in. What is your opinion on Tua? There's a lot of rumors around getting a Deshaun Watson, especially last preseason. But looking around the Dolphins season, they went 1-7, and then they had the winning streak. They seem to be in between on fully committing to Tua versus shopping elsewhere, which is similar to the Niners, which is what we're going to be talking about later. What is your opinion on that whole situation?
Now, Tua, with the whole Tua Tagovailoa situation, it's if he never got injured, I think he's in Cincinnati. And I always felt that way, breaking down the top 5 prospects, even before he got drafted to Miami. I always thought to myself, if Tua never got injured, he goes to Miami, and then the Dolphins he goes to Cincy, and then it's a decision with the Dolphins, Burrow or Herbert. Which hindsight, that's a great decision for the Dolphins to be in. But it's the problem, and I see where these Dolphin fans that don't like him come from is you expected him to come out of college ready to go, doesn't need this, doesn't need that, and he wasn't, and he needs things. So I think that's where people were getting upset, and that's where people want the sure thing, and it's so. If Deshaun Watson wasn't a situation either, like if he wasn't available, I don't think there'd be so much clamoring to get rid of Tua, because you give a quarterback at least 3 years to show what they can really do. But the fact that Deshaun Watson is available, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. If he didn't have the legal issues he has, I think he would have been a Dolphin by now. I 100% think that.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's not me knocking on Tua, because I think Tua with a better offensive line, because he had the worst in the NFL, he would be a very good quarterback. With me, my biggest knock on Tua is he's inconsistent. He'll make throws that you're like, that's it. That's your franchise quarterback. And then the next series, he makes like a dumb play, and you're just like, where's the consistency? Where's the consistency in a game? It's not even like I get one game of good, and then again, it's in the game. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's like there's something going on with him, and it could be Flores. Could it be that Flores never backed him? Could it be that Flores never gave him a chance? We'll find out this year.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go to straight stats. So I actually went deep into the first round picks from 06 to 16. And for quarterback, only a 41% chance to get one Pro Bowl out of a quarterback drafted in the first round. 17% chance to get multiple Pro Bowls, and only a 6% chance of getting an All-Pro. So it's very tough. And so when you're looking at Deshaun Watson, who has shown that he has the ability, not that Tua doesn't have the potential, you have to at least pick up the phone for those conversations, right?
And I think still pick up the phone. And again, I'm a Tua supporter. I think that you give him the right things and he can do certain things, but you still pick up the phone. What will it take now? Deshaun Watson still hasn't gotten through his legal issues. Keeps getting pushed back and back and back. Pick up the phone. Free agency starts. Hey, last time we talked, it was 3 1s, 2 2s, and all these players. What are you sitting at now? Because you ain't moving him, and he's gonna be worth $52 million if you cut him. $40 million if he stays on the team. Like Houston, you're really going to keep him on your?
It's a big ask, yeah.
So you gotta. There's only a handful of teams that I would say you don't need to call. A handful out of 32, I'd probably say maybe like 10 that you're like.
I would say 5.
Yeah. You don't need to call. You don't. Packers should call. Packers should definitely call if you can move on and get someone younger. Like why not? So
Hey, Jordan Love and whatever picks for Deshaun, and then trade Aaron Rodgers for peanuts. Yeah, do that.
yeah.
So Stephen Lamb, I'm sure he's one of your supporters there. Hey, I'm good. Coach McDaniel has got the Dolphins head in the right direction. That heads us into our next McDaniel's head coach. So I liked McDaniel was an under radar type coach. Like he had like the awkward press conferences. Like he seemed like a nerd. Like he just seemed like, hey, I like Star Wars and I like anime and I like all this kind of stuff and I love football and I'm just like I geek out on all this stuff. But when you look at the deep dive in the Niners stuff, he orchestrated a lot of those things, the run concepts. The Niners went from purely outside zone to like 35% power in the last year. So they did a lot of variations. And I'm sure some of that was Shanahan, but McDaniel had that in his realm as well. And so the run game was the biggest weakness in the Dolphins registry, right? You had Waddle and all that, in my opinion. Maybe you have a different opinion. So bringing him in, I thought that was a clever hire. And then with all the Flores heat, having a head coach with that much, with a little bit of pedigree, seemed like a bulletproof hire in my opinion. From a Dolphin standpoint, how do you feel and how do fans feel?
Yeah, initially I wanted the Dolphins to bring in somebody with experience, like a head coach that's already been there. And there was a few out there, Dan Quinn was available, Jim Caldwell, like all of these types of these Doug Peterson. These are quarterbacks, head coaches that have been to the Super Bowl, regardless if they won or not. I wanted that. But obviously the Dolphins went in a different direction. And out of the inexperienced coaches, Mike McDaniel was probably my number one. I love what he did with the 49ers, especially what he did with the run concept. Baldinger, I don't know if you saw his video where he broke down a ton of the run concepts, I think from 2020, I think it was. Just ridiculous the way he messed with the defense, took half their defense away with motions and stuff. So it makes me excited. And I like his awkwardness, because it shows he's like real,
I think it's authentic. Yeah, exactly. I think it's authentic.
Something.
Yeah. Obviously you saw the videos, him calling Tua and him on the plane and all that, the publicity. I thought that was real. I didn't think that was obviously it was staged for Somatic, but I thought that's who he was. That was my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, because we saw that, on the sidelines of the Pro Bowl, he was talking to Kittle. Like that's just what he does. He's just very inclusive and talks with his players. So, I that's, if you're going to be the head coach, that's the first person you should contact is Tua. And regardless if you want to move on with him or, keep him, I think that's the guy he should have talked to first, and that's was his decision. I'm
if
wondering,
you want a winning season, he has to buy in, right? Like he has to buy into you.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he called Tua or Tua called him. That's going to be interesting to find out.
Well, then you're the one with 30,000 followers on your channel. You should be the one to get deep dish in that.
Right? I'll find out. I'll try to find out.
So, like, I think, see, Craig says, hey, you almost got NEQ back in the line, would flourish at that position. I think Joey Harrington would have been a great if he had protection. Hell, looked like Mac Jones. I think, man, I think the fact that you have a Tua I think he's talking about Tua there and his back and forth. The injury coming out of college probably knocked him down a few pegs. I think there was a reach a little bit maybe by Miami in that sense. But you got to go, because you look at the situation now. A lot of people are saying Trey Lance would be the number one overall pick in this draft if he would have waited, because this quarterback class is weak. And last year you had 5 first rounders. And so like each year depends on how the quarterback is going to be perceived. Right. And so maybe Tua felt like he needed to come out because maybe his agent said, hey, next year the quarterback class is deep. If you're coming out, you have Mac Jones as a senior, all that kind of stuff. Like there could have been those things. And Miami took a chance on the talent.
And it's funny too, because a lot of people, it's a hindsight type thing, right? A lot of people are looking at what the Dolphins did, taking Tua at 5, and everyone's like, you should have took Herbert. You missed on Herbert. You should have took Herbert. And I went back because I was like, I don't like, again, I was specifically looking at who I liked and I did my top 5. So I was like, let me go back and look at people's, top 100 and I looked at the major networks, ESPN, CBS, NBC, Sports Illustrated, Draft Network, PFF. I looked at like 12 different sites,
Yeah.
and I wanted to see what their scouts top 10, top 100 were. Every single one of them had Tua in the top 10, 5, 8, like around there. And they had Justin Herbert from 16 to 22, that ranking. So they had Tua well above Justin Herbert. So it's not just the Dolphins that were like, oh, we kind of like Tua better than Herbert. It was everybody, everyone and their mother. So now all of a sudden, hindsight, all these people come out and they're like, say you should have took Herbert. And I always wanted Herbert. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, because you can go back, and I'm not even talking go back to, mid-season when Tua was still healthy. I'm talking, I looked at April 1st of 2020, and everyone had Tua way higher than Justin Herbert. So in hindsight, yeah, you go back in time, you're going to take Justin Herbert all day, every day. But at the time, it just, with the hip injury, he still had a ridiculous college tape. Ridiculous.
So do you think scouting has gotten too over the top, and the fact that like, hey, like who they're playing makes so much of a difference versus the talent, right? Because you have to believe in the talent way more than the competition if you're going to draft Trey Lance for the Niners, right? You're going to spend 3 first-round picks, move up, draft Trey Lance. He's playing for North Dakota State versus other quarterbacks, right? And so they went past the Alabama reference tape of Mac Jones to draft Trey Lance. Do you think that the NFL is going in that direction? Because for your team, it was the opposite, right? I mean, obviously Tua had good tape, but he played for Alabama. Maybe they should have went more for the raw ability in Herbert in hindsight, like you said. So
Yeah,
let me rephrase that question. So should drafting go towards the raw ability versus pedigree?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the GM and the head coach, because they all have different criteria that fits the players they want. Some, obviously talent has to be there, and talent's a huge part, but some have, characteristics and leadership and all that stuff higher than other things, where raw talent is. I think that you can't make that up. You can't learn that. There's certain things that when it comes to football, you can't learn, you can't teach. And those are things that you should be looking at. And I think that's where, you know, the pick of Tua was made sense to me, is because he does have things that you can't teach and you can't really learn, but then also his faults are kind of in that same realm, because his arm strength was always a thing. It's not something new that popped up that all of a sudden he's not Josh Allen, he's not Justin Herbert, he's not going to easily sling it 60 yards while running around. But he has those intangibles that people forget about. So
Let
again,
me ask you this: did you
yeah.
watch? In a documentary, I forget which documentary it was, but Steve Young for the Niners said that at BYU, he was asked to turn into a defensive back because he threw left-handed.
Mhm.
They said that coaches didn't know how to translate that from the right to left side at that time. Obviously, that was a long time ago from Tua, and he got not discriminated against. Well, yeah, technically he got discriminated against because he was a lefty, because the coach didn't feel like he could accurately depict his offense within a left-handed quarterback. The head coach got moved to somewhere else. They got a new head coach, and Steve Young was birthed into a Super Bowl champion. Do you feel like that is similar to a position of Tua, right? There's very little left-handed quarterbacks. Do you think he was discriminated against maybe in the league because of him being a lefty?
I think it's before I answer that question, I think it's interesting that his father forced him to be a lefty. I don't understand why he would do that, because Tua's a righty, and he forced his father forced him to be a lefty by tying his right arm and forcing him to throw the ball with his left. But I do think that it does take a factor in, because there's so few and far between of lefties, and Steve Young is a great example of not only the adversity you might face as a lefty, because it's hard. Your backup's a righty. So all of a sudden you get injured, they have to flip the playbook. So instead of rolling out to your left, you have to have your quarterback roll out to his right. So it's like this whole yin and yang situation. But Steve Young is a prime example of giving up on a quarterback too soon, because look at what Tampa did, and then he went to the Canadian Football League, and then he goes to the Niners. So, uh, yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and I notice that it's hard because it kind of cuts the field in half, especially when you start rolling out the other way. And some people tell me that the ball spins a different way, and that it's harder for the receivers to catch it. But I don't know if I agree with that.
See, so I'm on the opinion of Keenan Allen, right?
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw this quote early in the year, but everybody was talking about Trey Lance, like, oh, he throws the ball too hard, like the receivers can't catch it. Can he have touch? And people were starting to say the same things about Justin Herbert. And Keenan Allen was like, hey, if this guy throws it hard, I better get the jugs machine out and turn that up to 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my job as a receiver to catch the football. If he throws it hard, that's his arm strength. Like, I have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how kind of I feel. And so if he's a lefty, that's the receiver's job. Like, Waddle should be in Tua's front yard every day. Like, let me figure this out. Like, that would be my thing, and then Tua should do the same thing with him. Like, they should have it. Like, Trey Lance is going to Southern California to have a receiver combine this offseason to get better connection. Tua should do the same thing with his wide receivers this offseason, because there's no back and forth this year, right? Because this should be his year, right?
And he did the same thing last year when there was a new playbook installed. He met with the receivers and he was showing them and teaching them the plays, and because it was something it was similar to what he ran in Alabama, so he had an understanding of it, and he was met with the receivers. I think it was before OTAs, before all that stuff, and was showing them, going through plays, throwing it with them. So yeah, if that was true, that the ball spins a different way and it kind of messes with them, then yeah, like you said, all right, spin the jug machine a different way and get out there, or work with Tua when he's working out and stuff. So yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, you saw Cup say that, hey, like, I had breakfast with Stafford every day for 2 months to learn the playbook and do like that's a teammate thing. For you, Nick, how did the man, the myth, the legend, Doug, do this collab with you? Hey, I just asked him. That's it. In modern life, if you want things, just ask. Doug is way advanced in his realm of sportsdom, and I just asked. That's all it is. And sometimes you ask and you get what you want. That's what I'm saying.
I'm always down to work with people, so I'm not snooty. Just because I have a certain amount of subs doesn't mean I'm like, oh, I didn't even look at your sub count. I don't even care. You wanted to talk football? I'm like, yeah, let's talk football.
Let's do it. So let's move it on, because I think we need to keep going here. So what will McDaniel bring to the Dolphins that they were lacking last season?
A run game, but it's not just a run game, because an offense thrives on that offensive line. And I think with him bringing in the offensive coordinator that he brought in, with him bringing Applebaum in, with him bringing in all these guys that have a knowledge of offensive line and a knowledge of working with and making good offensive lines, I think that's what he's bringing. He's bringing in something that will help the offense drastically, and especially up front. There's a certain style of offensive lineman he's looking for. So he knows what he wants. Look at what you guys did. You went out, you needed an offensive lineman, you picked up one of the best in Trent Williams. There you go.
Well, that ain't gonna happen again. How many offensive linemen have cancer and all that kind of stuff? Like that ain't gonna happen again. I mean, no. Sorry, that was aggressive, but I'm just saying, like, that doesn't happen. You don't get an All-Pro for a third and a fifth. Like, you don't.
Well, supposedly, the Houston Texans want to move on from Laramie Tunsil. Supposedly.
So you just gonna do the get back thing, or what?
Come on home. Just come on home. We'll give you the 29th overall pick. We'll throw in a first and a fourth, because he's got a $22 million a year contract. We got the cap space to take it on. If Chris Greer can pull off bringing Laramie Tunsil back to Miami for a first and a fourth, I will get his name tattooed on me somewhere, because the amount of firsts he fleeced out of the Texans, and then to get the player back, it's highway robbery, absolute highway robbery.
Well, we'll talk about that later, the take for the Trey Lance trade, but yeah, I think that'll be great. So the run game is what you guys are missing. So I took your running back in fantasy football. I was sorely mistaken.
Never do that.
Yeah, that was mistaken, but there's a lot of positives already with your team. And if you're adding a run game and you're adding that presence, what do you think the offense will look like come next season?
Heavy play action, which I think would help Tua drastically. The defense has to stay honest to the run, which would help Tua drastically. Better offensive blocking. When Tua had made these plays, the crossing route to Waddle against the Titans and the Ravens, and when he's making all these throws down the field, these big throws down the field, the Dolphins were keeping 7 in to block 4. It was ridiculous. So essentially you had 3 guys running routes. It was stupid. So with the play action, it forces the defense, like I said, to be honest to the run. You can start play actioning, forcing the safeties to come down a little bit, able to get it over the top. It opens up the playbook drastically for Tua. It doesn't limit him to, okay, well, these safeties are going to drop back because you're going to play action and they're going to laugh and then drop back. And all of a sudden your deep passes aren't there. So we're just going to throw the crossers. And then all of a sudden he gets labeled to check down Tua, only throws his first reads. If there's no run game, you can't do anything. You cut your offense in half. So I think Mike McDaniel coming in, bolstering that offensive line and installing a good run game, I think it's going to open up this offense. And if, again, I said this before, and I might be jumping ahead on topics, if Tua doesn't thrive, if we get a run game, a top-notch run game, and Tua is still having the problems he's having, I don't see Tua on the Dolphins next year.
Really, outside of the rookie contract, you think they'd trade him within the rookie contract?
Yeah, I think having 2 firsts next year, they can use that to get the quarterback they want, whether it's trading for a vet or drafting a guy, because next year's draft is really deep in at quarterback. This is the year he needs to show, okay, it's because I was limited in certain aspects of my team and my game and my the plays. Now you gave me a coach who can work with me. Look, this is what you wanted at the 5th overall pick. If he can't do that, I don't think Mike McDaniel's going to waste much time on him.
I disagree because I think that the Niners stuck with Jimmy longer than they should have. So, but Stephen Lamb's got a question for you. Question for the Douglie. How do you feel about the possibility of Tom Brady having a partial ownership in the Dolphins? I didn't even hear about this.
It makes no sense to me. Zero. Why, if he had the, you're going to tell me Kraft wouldn't say, oh, you want part ownership of a football team? I'll give you part ownership of the Patriots. Why the Dolphins? I wouldn't be against it because he knows football, but why Dolphins? I don't think that's I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think that's a made up story.
So with ownership, there's 2 things, right? Are you a silent owner or are you an active owner? So if he's a silent owner, it's just money because he believes that there is active money to be made in Florida. Great. But if he's going to be an active owner and that makes no sense for a division rival for his entire career and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of hearsay and that kind of stuff. Let's keep going. Let's go here. Jack Green, what would you think about trading Xavier Howard and going after somebody like Stephon Gilmore? So the Niners have actively in their fan base brought up trades for Howard. And they're also actively saying that we should sign Gilmore because we think that the corner market is down and for the Niners. For you, actually, let me just phrase this. Xavier Howard, in your opinion, what would the package be worth to you in coming back for him?
For Howard?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get a first. I don't think you're going to get a first
really
anymore. Just because he's getting up. I'll take it first. I just don't know if you're going to get one anymore just because of his age. And, after that, 10 interception year, you're getting a first guaranteed.
Yeah.
And if the Dolphins wanted, are going to move on from him now, they should have done it after that season because that was when he was the hottest. Kind of took a falter off. So that's why I'm maybe a late first, but I think you can definitely get a second for him. But
I don't think he'd be a top 10. I don't think he'd be a top 10 pick, but I think you'd get a first for him.
Yeah. I'm not going after Stephon Gilmore. I'm going after Stephon Gilmore's replacement. So if I'm getting rid of Xavier Howard, I'm going after who I think is a younger version of him in J.C. Jackson. That's who I'd go after.
Yeah.
Um, and pair him with Byron. A lot of people will sleep on Byron Jones.
Yeah.
And because, Howard's out there making the big splashy plays, getting fumbles, getting the interceptions, and no one realizes that the reason he's getting these plays is because no one's throwing it to Byron's side because he's shutting down his receiver. That's what Byron did in Dallas. He won't get the interceptions, but you're not going to throw it to your number one guy who Byron's covering. So, that's what I would do. I'd bring in J.C. Jackson and be like, all right, you're going to feast like Xavier Howard did.
Let's go on to the coaching stuff here. So Wes Welker's a big thing. So McDaniel brought in Wes Welker. What do you think he brings to the wide receiver room? And do you think it's a suspect hire, right? So there's a lot of rumors going around in the Niners realm that he didn't like the Trey Lance pick. He didn't like the Brandon Ayuk pick. And so I know a lot of coaches, they don't give an F about who's drafted. They believe they can coach up anybody. They can take their raw tools and make them something, right? That's your job as a coach. But Wes Welker left in a lateral move. What have you heard from a Dolphin standpoint, and how do you like the hire?
A lot of the Dolphin fans love it. They love Wes Welker's back in the building. Should never let him go. I like the pick. I think he can help these receivers learn the things that they struggled against because he was so well at it. A lot of the yards after the catch, a lot of disciplined route running. That was what Wes Welker was known for. Wes Welker wasn't known for being this speedy receiver that it's going to bust open the field, get behind the safeties, and he's gone. He was very disciplined. If he's running a 5-yard out, he's crisp on those turnbacks. He's crisp on that. And that's where the Dolphins, wide receiver group kind of struggles a little bit, because when you break down film, you'll notice that if there's like an out route or, a post or something, it's a very sloppy turn. It's more of a turn than a cut to the inside, which can take off a second or two, especially when the timing with the quarterback. So I think that's what Welker will bring is, discipline and also teach them how to block, because you're running that zone, you're running outside. You need these receivers to also block, not as well as the tight ends. So I like bringing in Welker, and he has that familiarity with Mike McDaniel, who keeps bringing in his guys.
Yeah, mid podcast fun fact. Let me ask you, how many Super Bowls has Wes Welker won as a player?
0.
Yeah. You were direct with that. So yeah, 0 Super Bowls. You think like with all the teams that he was on, the Broncos and the Patriots, never won a Super Bowl. So, But I agree with you. Like, so you brought up a good point. And so let's go off the topic of Wes Welker and how the offense is going to change. Do you think that he can coach up them to block? Because Waddle didn't have to block in college because their offensive line was great. So, like, where Gesicki, I didn't watch enough Dolphins tape to really understand that. Is he a good blocker? Like, how does that going to change? Because with the outside zone and in the run scheme, you have to block as a wide receiver. That's going to be a McDaniel staple, just like it was a Shanahan staple. Do you think the wide receiver core, or just the receiver core in general, has that in them to block the way they need to now with the outside zone?
I think they're tough enough. Definitely the guys that are going to be kept. We'll see who stays and who goes, but I think the guys who are going to be kept, I think they're tough enough and they can do it. When it comes to Gesicki, on the other hand, that was his biggest knock coming out of college, and that is why the Dolphins took 2 tight ends that one should have been able to do the job in Durham Smythe and Mike Gesicki, instead of going with like Godert, who went like a few picks after the Dolphins in the second round.
Well, Kelsey can't block, and he's regarded as one of the best tight ends ever. Yeah, Casey, I'm throwing that shade because he can't block.
So they take Gesicki, who's a great route runner, fantastic, dangerous in the pass game, can't block. And they take Durham Smythe, I think 2 rounds later, a round later, who's horrible in the pass game, but will block you into the ground. So it's like this yin and yang situation. But he's gotten better, but not better to the point where that's what's limiting him from being a top 3, top 4 tight end in the NFL, is the all around tight endness of it. Kelsey, Andrews, and Kittle, they can do it all. Whereas it's like Gesicki is, He's missing that one part, and it's telling because he played inline. I think it was 11% of the time. 11% of his snaps were inline. 85% of his snaps were either in the slot or out wide. So it really like limits his game, and it really limits if the Dolphins can disguise the play they're doing. Gesicki's on the field, they're not running it. Gesicki's off the field, that they're going to run it. So it's like kind of hurts him a little bit unless he's a distraction and they line him wide and then they run it up the middle, because then you don't need him to block. So
let me give you a little positive for Dolphins fans here. So with the wide zone, they want to disguise all that kind of stuff and do all those things. But Gesicki, and the fact that he is moving, he is athletic, you're going to have a lot of those plays where he's looking like he's blocking and he's flailing out. He's doing all things like McDaniel is going to make him an active part in that game. And so where Kittle is a phenomenal blocker. So that's a little bit different, but he's able to get the yards after catch just like Gesicki can. So I think McDaniel is going to scheme him up in a lot of different things. And the fact, I think that it's very underrated, and I don't know why people don't talk about this, the fact that Tua is left-handed, defenses are not used to seeing schemes drawn up the opposite way. So the fact that he's rolling out, like you're going to have linebackers and safeties thinking a normal play is going one way, and it's the exact opposite. Regardless if they've trained for it all week, that's 1 week, but the rest of their life, it's been mainly righties, right? So I think that McDaniel is going to do wonders for Gesicki. And I don't know if you fantasy football fans out, I think he should be taken within round 9 to 11 and like that home run, tight end, reach type pick. I think he would be my choice next season.
One of the things I loved that I was watching film on Mike McDaniel and your guys' run game is there was a play where he took Kittle and he you're the quarterback. He took Kittle and he lined him out all the way to the right. He was the only receiver to the right, and the corner was pointing at him. So then the safety noticed. So the safety started to cheat a little bit to Kittle's side, and then the linebacker started to cheat to Kittle's side, and the play was a run to the left. So he with just Kittle being wide and the focus being on Kittle being out wide to the right, about 3 or 4 defenders shifted that way to cover him and worry about him, especially with the motion. And then you guys ran it to the left, and it was their defense was outnumbered by the amount of blockers. Like it's these types of things that Mike McDaniel does that, like you said, he'll use Gesicki for that. Like, okay, Gesicki, you're not great at blocking, but you're a dynamic pass catcher. We're going to use you to disguise and distract, and then we're just going to run the opposite way. So it depends if they franchise tag him or re-sign him, because that's what it's all going to come down to.
For me, it's a thing like, so Shanahan puts stuff on tape just to put stuff on tape.
Yeah.
So he'll run the same play like 4 times, like, oh, this is what our offensive looked like. And then the next week, that scheme will not even be in existence. And then the week after that, they'll show it. It'll be on tape, and the defense like, okay, good. We know what's going on here. And then it'll run the opposite direction, 98-yard touchdown, home run. And you're like Shanahan thinks about those kind of things. So that's his mental ability. I don't know if McDaniel has that thing, but he's been learning under him. Maybe that'll translate, because I think the Dolphins have an interesting experiment here with the lefty and the fact that everything's flipped. The offense can be flipped. They have a lot of position players who have extreme athletic ability, and you can drop a lot of plays that show, and you could scheme like a silhouette, like a symphony across the season. And it'll be interesting. I think if Mike McDaniel can hit his stride as a play caller, maybe on the first year, definitely the second year, like you guys could be very well set up in the East there.
Yeah. And that's what it's all going to come down to is, can Mike McDaniel pull everything together? And for me, can he keep the defense the way it has been for the past 2 years? And then can he just build up the offense? Because if the offense can play at the same level as the defense, this team is going to be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. Let's go to Jack Green here. This is probably for you. Do you think that, or actually, I guess probably for both of us, do you think that Mr. Trubisky can get a starter role somewhere this season? I seriously think there's some teams crying out for a capable starting quarterback.
Is Mitch Trubisky a starting quarterback though?
I think so.
There's some teams, Tampa, I could see him doing because Tampa's still a quarterback away. You know, they're still a very good
Yeah.
team that just needs to plug in a quarterback. Tampa was one. There's another team I was thinking that is just they just need a quarterback.
So
But yeah,
I would think that the best option for him, I don't believe in the Saints quarterbacks. I don't.
oh yeah, that's the other
And I
one.
would
Yeah.
say the Saints,
Mhm.
right? Because he was able to do the checkdowns in Chicago. So Kamara, even when we'll excuse his criminal aspect right now, like what he's going through. But I think that the fact that he can throw checkdowns, he has Michael Thomas who can do the slants and deep routes. And I think that if you're willing to get an offensive coach who's willing to scheme that, I mean, obviously, new head coach, because Sean Payton's in there, but the talent is around them. And then you have one of the best defenses in the NFL still there, which gives him leeway to make mistakes,
Yeah.
where Chicago didn't give him that leeway, right? How can Jimmy Garoppolo be so good, or how can Trey Lance be so good? Because they had the mistakes. How did Tua win all those games in a row? Because the defense was good, right? Like you have that ability to take those leaps, and I think that Mitch Trubisky could do that with the Saints.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And he's a viable quarterback. You know, we've seen quarterbacks like Nick Foles and Trent Dilfer and all these quarterbacks get to a Super Bowl and win it, and then all of a sudden they just disappear.
Yeah.
So Trubisky can do. We saw Rex Grossman go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, he didn't win it, but we saw him go to the Super Bowl. So if you can, that's why like Tampa was the first team that popped in my head because they seem like that type of system that you have the wide receivers, you have the offensive line, you have that defense. You just plug in a quarterback and just don't mess it up. Essentially,
You think Godwin resigns? Not resigns, resigns.
Last year, I thought they were going to lose so many players, and then all of a sudden, so many players were like, "I'm going back to Tampa. I'm going back to Tampa. I'm going back." I think he's going to.
Well, 3 restructures. The Saints saved like what $30 million. So like, there's all kinds of stuff that can be done.
The Saints are in cap hell, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He's a little injury prone, so he might not get the amount of money he wants in free agency, and then he might just say screw it and go back to Tampa. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to Tampa.
Yeah, let's do this question. We've got 3 topics left. Question for both. Do you think Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, marriage is over? And where do you see him landing? Cerberus, as a 49er fan, what would the division be without having him in it? So I'll take this first since I can do both. Like Russell Wilson was the rookie contract, and they had an expert defense, and that's why they won the Super Bowl. They went to the NFC Championship before that. They were a dominant team. And now I think the marriage is over. I think also Russell Wilson isn't as good as that he was earlier in his career. He's being asked to do more things because the defense isn't as good. The run game isn't as good. Mm-hmm. And so when you're as an overall quarterback, you have to gauge those things. And so I think ultimately the Seahawks are going to decide whether they want to rebuild, which I think they should. If they don't, they have to build the team around him because Russell Wilson is the most important part.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny too, because a lot of people look at the Seattle situation and they think that it's one or the other, right? Either Pete Carroll has to go or, Wilson has to go. And I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck together still. But if he was to go, I think he'd be in another one of those situations where you plug him in. And I think he's another hot commodity, being that he's also young. So, you younger, let's say, because he's not that young. For some reason, to me, 2012 was like yesterday.
Well, because Tom Brady's 45, so everybody's young if they're under 30. Yeah, or 30, 37.
That's now the cap of remember back in the day it was like 39, you were washed, all right, you're done. And now
Doug Flutie's over 40 and he's throwing a first down. Like, let's all praise him. That's times have changed.
I watched a game where the Patriots were taking on the Dolphins, and he did a drop kick into the uprights, and I think they got like 2 points or something. I don't remember what the rule was.
That is technically a rule. Yeah, I don't know why people don't.
He came in, and I'm like, oh look, it's Doug Flutie. And he drop kicked it right through the uprights. I was like, the hell is this?
So let's go to free agency. So the reason I talked to Dougley, the fact that Dolphins have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
The biggest thing on the Niners is their number one free agent is Laken Tomlinson. The number one need for the Dolphins offensive line. So we're talking about not only the coaching changes, but the needs and the highest level free agents for both teams match up. So what do you feel about free agency for the Dolphins? Where do you feel like the biggest need is? I already said offensive line, but if you want to expand on that, and how do you feel Laken Tomlinson fits into that mold? Do you think they offer that kind of contract?
So yeah, to me, I'm not going too hard on the offensive line. I'm not going to spend, 30, 40 million on all that stuff. But it is important to me. I want to add at least one or two vets on that offensive line, because to me, I think the reason why the Dolphins offensive line struggled, because there's still core pieces there that I think can be good in Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg, Robert Hunt, and Solomon Kinley. I think they could still develop into something really good, but they were playing with each other. Normally if you're a rookie, you have a vet to your left or right, and they can kind of steer you and help you, if they're coming your way, or, different schemes. So I'm adding a vet or two on the offensive line. And then it all depends on what happens with Emmanuel Ogbah. That's a big talking point as well. Will they bring him back? Will they re-sign him? Because if they don't, then, to me personally, I think you need to address that as well. And then the run game. But like I said to you before, I think they're going to redo the wide receiving room completely. I don't see Albert Wilson coming back. I don't see Alan Hearns coming back. I don't see Preston Williams coming back. I wouldn't be surprised.
Do you see that River Craycraft is a real signing, or is it just a special team ad?
What was that?
River Craycraft? Do you think he's a real signing or a special team ad?
I think he's just a special teamer. He has he's real good. Like, don't get me wrong. He's got great speed, and I think that's.
I think he's on the fringe. Like, he's a fringe practice player, wide receiver 5. So but he could add some depth to your team.
Yeah, he fits the role. It seems like he fits the role of, like, Lynn Bowden Jr., right? The Dolphins stashed him on IR, and he kind of seems to fit that role of what Mike McDaniel is trying to install on the offense. So, that receiver also, it's the speed, right? It's that speed receiver. He could be a special teamer, like you said, where he could be, we don't have a kick returner anymore, or a return specialist once we got rid of Jakeem Grant. So does he fit that mold, or can he play enough to break into, the receiving core? That's going to be a big talking point come camp. What can he do? Can he show more than he's already shown and be able to make this roster? But I do think that this wide receiving core is going to be completely different. And Devontae Parker's another big name. He's only getting $8 million this year. He's not getting 11. He's not getting 12. He's getting about backup wide receiver money. Do they keep him and see if he can stay healthy when he hasn't, except for 1 year, or do they ship him? And, teams will take that $8 million cap, because that's not bad for the type of production that Parker can give you if he can stay healthy. So when looking at free agency, offensive line is number one. But
so what do you think I think that for the Niners would be around 8 to 10 million is what I would offer Laken. You guys obviously have more cap space than us. Would you go higher than that?
It depends on this is where I trust Mike McDaniel, right? Because he's been on the team with him. He knows the style of play he can do. He knows, he'll fit the scheme. Obviously, he's been in the scheme. So it depends. If you guys offer him around that, and Mike McDaniel feels like, oh, he can be viable to our offensive line, why not? I wouldn't mind offering him about 12, because Ryan Jensen is a center that I would love the Dolphins to go after. He's projected to make about $13 million a year. So that's not bad compared to, Armstead and, some of these other guys who are pulling in potentially $20 million a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would offer him around 11, 12 if Mike McDaniel thinks he's a upgrade and can help us.
All right. So speaking of another upgrade, Raheem Mostert. So obviously he's dominant when he's on the field. Hasn't been on the field consistently. He could probably make more money in Miami, or he could stay in San Francisco for less. Do you think that the Dolphins bring him in the spare chance he can stay healthy and be that game changer for maybe 2.5, $3 million, where I think the Niners are only offering $1 million and a half.
So the Dolphins right now have Myles Gaskin as their only running back on the roster signed. So they're going to add a few, and I think the Dolphins, especially with Mike McDaniel having such familiarity with you guys, is going to try to poach some of your players. And I think those are the two that are coming up the most, especially Mostert, who knows the run, the zone run, and knows the scheme and everything. And he'll be cheap. Running backs nowadays, they're not what they used to be back in the day with like LaDainian Tomlinson pulling in like 16 million a year. It's not like that anymore. So the Dolphins could probably get him for around like 3-4 million a year, maybe sign him to a 1-year contract, see if he could stay healthy. But that is, again, would he want to make that transition, or will he take less, like you said, to stay with San Fran? But I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in him and somebody else, James Conner or something like that, to that 1-2, or bring back Duke and Lindsey, and then bring in Mostert to have that nice combination. Because, like you said, Mike McDaniel, it's not just about one running back in this situation.
So let's go here. Let's go do a couple questions because I know you got to get going here. We're at 50 minutes, so let's do. Who do you think would be the backup for the Dolphins and the Niners? So I'll let you go first. Who do you think the backup's going to be next season for you guys? What would you envision?
So initially, just off the top of my head, I was like, I like the idea of, the Hawaiian brothers kind of 1-2 punch with Mariota, but doing more research on him, I noticed that, he gets injured real easily, has accuracy issues. So to me, a nice backup I'd like is Teddy Bridgewater. Bring him in because we need a guy who can, for one, stay healthy, but two, is smart and can really, God forbid Tua goes down, which he's done his 2 years in NFL, he never stays healthy. We need a guy who can come in and win us these games. And it seems like that's what Teddy Bridgewater can do. He's the type of guy, if you play him the full season, he's going to lose more than he'll win. But if you just plug him in a game or two, he'll get you those wins. So to me, a viable backup that I'm looking at is Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I think that Mariota has been schemed to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mariota is going to be out of our price point, right? So I think he could possibly get 10, maybe 12 million as a potential starter salary, right? So when you're a backup, maybe a potential starter, I think the Niners, outside of getting Tom Brady, will want Trey Lance to be the guy. So Tyrod Taylor is the guy that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And he, with Anthony Lynn being brought into the Niners, Tyrod Taylor has been in multiple stops with Anthony Lynn. He has that relationship. He has that veteran status. He's probably worth $4 to $6 million.
Yeah.
And now your quarterback room is what? I think Trey Lance is making $9 million next year. So you're looking at $14 million, though just not bad for a quarterback room. And you can rely on Tyrod to win games if that goes wrong. So that would be where I would go for the Niners. So we got a little question left. So let's go this. Let's go the Trey Lance trade. So obviously we traded you guys multiple first round picks.
Mm-hmm.
We got Trey Lance. One, did you as a Dolphins fan want Trey Lance? Did you want to get a quarterback at that point? Were you okay with Tua? And two, did you think that was enough to move up? Like, were you happy with the trade?
Yeah, I was surprised for the amount that we got, the 3 firsts and whatever else. I think we got like another pick. No, I didn't want to. Right? I was good with Tua. I was more on the thought process of building. Let's get offensive linemen. Let's do this. So I wasn't in the quarterback thought process, because if you're going to move on from Tua because he hasn't developed enough, you're not going to. Why would you bring in a quarterback who you need time to develop? It just didn't make sense to me. But yeah, I like the move. I like the amount of the picks we got. I just wish the trade with the Eagles, I wish we would have sent the 49ers pick, not the Dolphins pick. And I did not, and no offense or anything, I did not think you guys would get that far into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I was just sitting there like, okay, they're going to lose.
Nor did most of the Niners fans.
They'll lose now. Okay, come on. Oh my God, they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I thought it was a good trade too. I mean, I'm a big Trey Lance fan. I thought that could have worked out. Let's hit another topic here. God, I think the viscosity of the pro against Jimmy, pro against Trey, pro against Tua has a lot of similar qualities. So how is the Dolphins fandom towards Tua? Is there a lot of hate? Is there a lot of praise? Like, is there like a complete polar opposite fan base for that player?
So I did a ton of polls where I asked that question, like, are you ready to move on from Tua, yada yada. And it was like 75% like Tua, and there's about the 25% who were ready to move on. And they're loud. The fans that don't want Tua are very loud. It's a minority, but it's a loud minority. And they want Deshaun Watson, they want Aaron Rodgers, they want anybody at this point. They think Tua's a bust. He sucks, inaccurate, noodle arm. I've heard so many things called to
Yeah.
this kid. It's ridiculous. But yeah, the majority of Dolphin fans like Tua, and majority of Dolphin fans like the signing of Mike McDaniel and think that he will help Tua out. But again, there's that minority that are like, I'm done. Get me Deshaun Watson. He's available. Why aren't we getting him? He's better, yada yada.
Yeah, I'll
So
trade my own mom for Deshaun Watson. Yeah.
it's pretty ridiculous the amount of stuff that. So well, I think at one point the rumor was it was like 3 ones, some players, and like a third and a fourth, and people were like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, that is ridiculous.
That would be the most given up assets of any trade of all time, right? I mean, outside of what, Ricky Williams?
Yeah. Oh my god. He
Yeah.
gave up his whole draft for Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
Friggin' dicker. He's out of his mind.
So the same thing is for Jimmy. Like, so I don't know if you follow, Niners Twitter, but we had the top 100 Jimmy sexuals is what they're called now. So people who like Jimmy Garoppolo, they're called Jimmy sexuals among the Niners fan base. And they had some guy ran the top 100. Like, there's so many people who love Jimmy and don't understand the hate and like wish that he stayed. And there's so many people that think Trey Lance will walk on water, turn water to wine, be throwing for 75 touchdowns next year. And I think the Niners fan base is so over like all the spectrums. Like, somebody's going to be disappointed next year because they're not going to match up with their expectations. It's just crazy. And I don't know if Miami fan bases get that way, but it's nuts over on this side of the football.
They're called Tuanon. There's Tuanon, which is ridiculous. It's like it's literally QAnon but with Tua fans, and like
which is accurate like verbiage. Yeah, I get that. I understand.
There's a guy who makes videos with a dolphin mask on, and it's ridiculous. And then people who don't like Tua call supporters of Tua stands and Tua fanboys and all this. It's just, and then there's Tua haters, and it's just split. And it's just, and I just sit back and I'm like, because I consider myself very even keel when it comes to Tua. I can tell you things I don't like about him. Like I said, his inconsistencies, and he needs to be more. He needs to work more on this and stuff like that. And I can tell you things I love about him. So like some days I get called a Tua stan, some days I get called a Tua hater, and it's the life I live.
Yeah, I mean it is how it is with fan bases. Like some people are just so boom, in one direction, but hey, we have positives on both sides.
Yep.
We're trying to progress upwards. I think you guys made a good coach. I think McDaniel will do good. If he can, the question will be if he can call plays. Like he's got the design. If he can call plays in an active football game and be the head coach, which Shanahan had trouble doing early on. And most people say even last season he had trouble doing it. So we'll see if you can do that. But you have the talent. I mean, Waddle's a great talent. And I think that run game can progress. So DouglieDoWrong, I appreciate you coming out. This has been a great episode of just bantering back and forth. I know we had like 3 or 4 other topics to get to, but hey, just banter is good content. You know what I'm saying? And
well, I'll have you on my channel. We'll get to those other topics.
Let's do it. So appreciate all you fans coming in. I know that normally your fans don't subscribe.
I might have lost you. Did I lose you?
DouglieDoWrong. And we'll get this stuff going on a more regular basis because, hey, our teams are playing this year. So I want to knock you down for the whatever week that we play each other, and we'll do a pregame episode.
I'm totally down, dude. This is fun. And it's great talking to you. And this was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I keep noticing your sleeve there. And
we both got tattoos.
Yeah. We both got
tattoo gang. I like it. No, I was going to ask you because I was like, oh, we're running out of time, but I want to ask him about his tattoos, and I really didn't get a chance to. So
yeah, mine's a zombie koi sleeve.
I got a phoenix on this side.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I got a dragon on that side. So
I got the dragon on the chest. That's
okay, good. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on. For all your Dolphins content, hit them up. For all your Niners content, hit me up. For all your BS, hit whoever you want to, because we're just having fun here. So again, this is Cerebral Sports Talk. All my stuff is on the top. DouglieDoWrong stuff is